All right. Hi, everybody. All right, so we're so excited to be live today with Lindsay Scholz, Dr. Scholz. All right, I see people joining. Hi, everybody. All right, awesome. I'm going to wait until we have Dr. Scholz in, and we're going to be talking today about strong-willed kids. I'm so excited for the topic today. I know all of you are, and you're also loving our content on strong-willed kids. I see you, Dr. Scholz. I'm gonna go ahead and invite you now, and I will accept it. Hi, Decoding Mommy Life. How are you? I'm so happy you came to the live today. Oh, hi.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
It looks like your phone is on the wrong angle.
Let me see if I can just adjust y'all here. Maybe put you
perfect
like this. See if that's going to stay.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you guys hear us both okay? Yes. I'm just waiting for a few of you to say yes, confirm. All right. All right. I see a lot of people here. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. All right. Well, I'm going to get started. If somebody can please confirm that you can hear me well, I'd appreciate it. I'll go looking in the comments. Yes. All right. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. So I'm so excited to be here today with Dr. Lindsay Scholz. She is the head therapist at Supportive Space Counseling. She's also a professor at Mercy College and has so many certifications. I would love for you guys to go and visit. I mean, a wealth of knowledge here. So we are excited about the topic today. You guys want a lot more resources for strong-willed kids, and we have really good questions. So, Lindsay, please start with a quick intro about yourself and Supportive Space.
Sure. My goodness, where to start? So my name is Lindsay Scholz. I've been a licensed therapist in the state of New Jersey now for well over a decade. Do have some specializations in addictions, children and adolescent studies, and I work with really the whole gamut. So I work with families, I work with couples, adults, teens, children. So really, I've done it all, and I've done it all in almost every setting. So I've worked in hospitals, on inpatient units, in lesser intensive levels of care, what we call like intensive outpatient programs, 5-day-a-week, intensive programs. And now I own an outpatient practice here in New Jersey called Supportive Space Counseling, where we have about 15 to 20 other therapists, and we provide all of our services online. We've been doing that since early 2019. So we've been having just tremendous success with that. We even use interns at my agency to provide free services to individuals across New Jersey. And so we're doing all we can to kind of make that difference. And I have to say, I was super excited to get the invitation to come today and with you all on what I know from my work with strong-willed children and highly sensitive children.
Yeah, awesome. One of the reasons why I really value your page, your work, is because you have all of these resources for people. I mean, like you mentioned, even all the way free, but your paid is also reasonably priced, and for New Jersey residents. And I mean, there's not enough physicians doing that, therapists doing that. So I thank you so much for that. So let's move on into our topic for today. Strong-willed kids. So how do you define a strong-willed child? What are the characteristics that you're looking for?
Now, I'm going to tell you, I have a very different framework in looking at a strong-willed child. So many people will call these types of children difficult, fussy, and I would call them more spirited, as well as courageous. You know what I mean? These are kids that they want to be in charge of themselves. They want to figure things out for themselves. And that's actually quite a bold thing for a child to want to do, right? So if we reframe that ever so slightly, we could really say, like, these are bold and courageous children. So that's how I look at a strong-willed child. Not to say that it's easy, parenting or working with a very strong-willed child.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's why we're here today and why the strategies that we're going to go over are so important. So what are the signs that you usually see when a parent's coming in and needing support with a strong-willed child?
Well, I think the most prevalent thing we're seeing is parent shows up and they say, listen, I am just getting in these back and forths with my child that like they're never ending. And what happens is I end up escalating to my child's level, right? How do I stop this, right? Or how do I calm them down and reduce the frequency of this happening, right? Because when you have a strong-willed child, it's not a part of personality. It's sort of like a preferential thing that a child does, right? And so I think also being mindful that, you know, there are ways that we can kind of work to change that. But again, we've got to role model that a lot, right? So strong-willed children, I think it's important to note, and I educate a lot of parents on this when they come in. I ask them to take a look at themselves and their partner and whoever spends the most time around the child, because we're all born, right? It's a famous saying in psychology, we're all born this blank slate, right? But yet here we all sit, many of us adults, and we're our own unique selves with our own preferences, tendencies, some of us strong-willed, right? But how did we get that way? Well, it was the people around us that sort of shaped us. So a lot of work I do with parents too is looking within themselves and sort of finding what traits they may have that are bringing out this strong-willed nature within the child as well.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's an amazing first step. And one of the things that I wanted to just speak on, because I found this topic really interesting, is that strong-willed children have an issue with coping or regulating with strong emotions because they're highly sensitive, and that they will often choose that anger and having that fight with a parent as an outlet to not have to feel or go into the real emotion that's making them feel scared, angry, or stuff like that. So is that why it's so important to not, I guess, what we call take the rope or fight with them, come to their level?
You know, you made a lot of great points in what you say there. I think one thing I definitely want to highlight is children are just like small adults in many ways, right? And so I think that, yeah, it's tempting to pull that rope and get in that power struggle. I'm sorry that my train of thought just
Yeah, so I wanted you to speak on the topic that essentially kids will prefer anger or fighting with a parent to then instead of actually dealing with the uncomfortable emotion.
correct. And similarly with adults, right? If something happens deeply distressing to us, it is much easier to turn to anger, to yell and scream about something. You feel a little bit of control and power, right? As opposed to go cry in the corner because of how devastated something has made you. And so not only do we see that in children, we see it in adults, right? And when we see that in a child that's strong-willed, it's particularly difficult to navigate because yes, when they've checked out or shut down or they're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, they're already at a place of dysregulation. And so they need you, parent, like they need you at that point. They can't say it, they can't shout it out, but they are with their behavior saying, help me, calm me down, because I don't feel okay right now. I feel just entirely overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. And is that why it's so important to empathize with their feelings as opposed to, meet them at their anger? Because I guess empathizing really shifts their focus back to regulating the emotion and getting rid of it.
Right. I think empathizing and labeling emotions, because depending on the age of your child, a toddler has only a 200-word vocabulary, right? But it's never soon to see your toddler frustrated and say, I see you're really frustrated. You can't get the square in the hole, right? Like, do you think you can try a different hole, right? Things like that. So I absolutely couldn't agree more. I think labeling emotions and empathizing, right? Because highly sensitive children and strong-willed children, and often those things go hand in hand, right? They come together. They are very, very, like I said, easily overwhelmed. And again, if they can't label the emotion, then you can't work through something until you know what it is, right? And so learning to label the emotion is not only crucial in handling the situation as it presents in the now, but the way that we teach our kids to handle and label their emotions in the now is going to determine how they do that as an adult, right?
I think that's an amazing point that you made in terms of having a small vocabulary, because I think that's the one thing that parents absolutely forget, especially in the moment when they're frustrated, that a child doesn't have the vocabulary, period, to communicate what they want inside, and that itself leads to frustration and overwhelm, and why it can be so fulfilling for a person to speak the words. I mean, I think that happens to us all the time, where parents like our posts or what we say because it's like, you are saying what I want to communicate, right? Like clearly. And a child values that experience so much in those moments, right? So I really love that point that you made.
I think a child seeks to understand, to your point, they seek to understand. And with that understanding does come some empowerment, right? And in any situation, especially if a person is overwhelmed, child or adult, if we can bring some empowerment back to that, then maybe we can get our arms around the emotion, get our arms around the situation, and de-escalate, re-regulate.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to go into now some strategies. Now that we spoke about how important it is to actually vocalize and communicate, I wanted to go into some strategies. So one of the ones that we covered today that I'd love your opinion on is having a third party or a set of house rules, which is how we presented it, but a third party with strong-willed children. So very much like a video game where it's just, that's what the rules are and you have to deal with it. How do you recommend some kind of tool that a parent can use that's not really up to them? So with a child like this.
You mean a tool that perhaps puts it more in the child's hands?
Yeah, exactly.
Or so. I think behavioral charts, right, are key. I can definitely send you a few examples that you can maybe post up for your followers in case they want to download some, use those. They work great, particularly with younger children, but you've just got to up the ante on what the reward's going to be, and you can make it just as effective with teenagers too. And how that works is you have a blank chart, right? And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the side, and you'd have different behaviors. If a child is known for outbursts, one of the target goals may be to have no outbursts, or to be able to regain control after any. It depends on where your child is, right? And then if at the end of the day they met that goal, sticker goes on your back, right? And we have all the other goals for the day we're striving for. And the point being, if you get this many stickers, what's something that it is worth it to you, kid? You know, you don't come out and say it just like that, because my gosh, next thing you know, like they'll be asking for like $500 iPhones. But you know, the reason that your child, it ups the ante, and it makes them want to engage, right? I think that's definitely a big tool. I also think consistency, right? So if you do put that in place, being consistent with it every day, and being consistent following through when the stickers are earned. If it takes 100 stickers to get, 150, I'd say, to get a PlayStation, then it's 150 stickers to get that PlayStation, and we go get that PlayStation when we get those 150 stickers, but the consistency in any type of intervention you're going to try to implement with a child is critical.
Yeah.
Because if you feel the follow through is not there, then their follow through starts to dissipate. It disappears,
Yeah, for sure. And that you touched on another great point that we made today on the post, which is strong-willed kids are kind of inherently selfish. They want things to be done their way, on their time, etc. And one of the ways that you can redirect this or actually create a positive out of this is helping them become a leader in whatever they want to be dominant over. And I think that you touched on that with the behavioral chart really well, because one, it makes them a leader, and it helps them kind of strategize and taking control over in a positive way. So I really like that point. So another thing, and I really wanted you to speak on this, is what do you think about writing punishments where essentially a child is explaining what they did wrong, maybe why, or what they would do better, and why that helps with strong-willed kids, particularly with allowing them to gain their awareness on their own terms. So what do you think about writing punishments and helping them make a comeback, and why they help so much with these kids?
So I think that absolutely that is an effective technique to use to, reduce the frequency of any negative behavior, right? So the issue I can see arising with that is every child is so different, right? And so you have your fair amount of younger children that, to a certain age in development, a child can only see things from their perspective. So yeah, they seem so selfish, right? Selfish little son of a guns, but they're not. Like, it's just a mental capacity sort of issue, right? A developmental issue. They're not there yet in their cognitive processing. They don't have this higher level of thinking yet to say, oh, I did this because of this, but that was wrong because it caused this. Or so I think depending on age for younger children, I think it's important to sit with them and make sure they understand what they did was wrong. And then, of course, to say, listen, I think maybe you should go and journal about this, and maybe journal about different things that you've done, to have a better outcome. What different choices could you have made, right? Because strong-willed children like to be in control. They like to make the choices. And for older kids, I think you don't need to sit with them and walk them through why it was wrong. If they're at a level of understanding the right and wrong, then these assignment type things, they seem to work very well for your strong-willed kids.
For sure. So I basically wanted to segue over to a little bit more of what we focus on, and that's body awareness. And I wanted to speak on how highly sensitive kids, strong-willed kids, feel everything in life, the highs and the lows, very intensely. And maybe what are some grounding or some techniques that you would recommend for a parent to kind of separate the child from the moment?
Sure. I think you make a lot of good points. With everything you said, with the body image and needing to sort of, in this day and time, come up with different skills that absolutely, highly sensitive children and strong-willed children, they are big internalizers, right? Not with intention. It's their natural tendency to take things that happen and make it about them. And when a child does that, a lot of times the script is negative, right? And it's, oh, these kids made fun of me because I'm not good enough. And believe it or not, I've been there. I've worked with teens that, out of the hospital from a suicide attempt, and it takes time, but it comes out that, my God, like, this all came from childhood bullying, right? And this internal negative framework that's kind of set in place in children's minds when they do internalize the negative behaviors or commentary of others. So just on the note of body image, I think a PSA to everybody, like, your child is perfect. Every child is perfect as they are. There's always room for improvement, but be careful how you frame things around body image, because you never know how it's going to be internalized, As for the grounding skills, one of my favorites is definitely the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding skill, which some of you may be familiar with, and that relies off the 5 senses. So it's 5 things looking around your immediate environment and identifying 5 things that you can hear, 4 things that you can see, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things that you can hear, and 1 thing that you can taste, right? And what does that do? Well, it brings us to the moment. So if we're dysregulated, we're off somewhere else, it takes us right here, right now. I'm looking at my immediate environment, and it's taking my thought process and it's shifting it to here and now and away from this distress. And so that's why it's so effective, right? Another great skill is block breathing. Block breathing is a skill they teach Marines, they teach nurses in nursing school, and it's a skill that's used for people trying to quit smoking cessation. It's a skill that is widely employed, and you can never learn it young enough. If you can put this skill in your child's toolbox, they will forever, have this extra layer of resiliency built into them. And block breathing is a simple technique, and you imagine a square, right? And you want to be breathing at a paced rate. So paced breathing, that means I'm breathing in for the same amount of time I'm holding it, or the same amount of time I'm breathing out. So we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold it again for 4 seconds, and then we're going to repeat that. And that's something that I can send you a very handy little flyer on too, so that this way people can take a look at it. It's a lot easier to sort of take and use when you sort of see it visually laid out. But it's to a 4 count. We're breathing in, we're holding our breath, we're breathing out, we're still holding it, and then we're starting again with the inhale.
Okay, awesome. If you send that over, I'll put it up on the stories for everybody watching. But quick question before we move on: when you're breathing out, do you breathe out from your nose or from your mouth?
You can do either. That's the beauty of it. You could be in the middle of work and you can be feeling very anxious, and you can employ this skill. Nobody's going to know, because sometimes people get nervous. Oh, the people are going to notice. What? First of all, everybody's focusing on themselves. Let's never forget that. But yeah, this is a skill you can do anywhere, because you can do it at your preference. Breathe in through the nose, out the mouth, both through the nose. That's what works for you.
Awesome. And then there's one other strategy, body-based, that I wanted you to speak on, basically what your opinion is. And it was essentially how important it is to teach strong-willed kids to find the feeling in the body, because that's the point in which they can start working through that area or that sensation best. And so if you really practice with a sensitive child, where is anger? So if they look for it in their body, and let's say they feel like they want to run away, then you can help assist them in taking a walk, or something that matches very closely the sensation that they feel in the body. What do you think about that for these kids in particular?
Absolutely. I think that's tremendously effective. Because here's the thing. If I have a child that, for example, tells me I'm feeling like I have to go to the bathroom, like really badly, like, okay, let's go. Let's see if you have to go to the bathroom. And anxiety is like a known trigger for that. So like sometimes people, they don't have to go. It's just fight or flight system saying, clear it out, because we might have to run, panic, right? But I think when most of us, if we stop and reflect on a recent time where we felt a heavy emotion, we do have a place within our body where systemically we can feel that. And for many people, that's the first sign to them of an emotion. So for a lot of people I work with, kids alike, especially with anger, it's like, well, what's the first thing that tells you you're angry? Oh, I feel it in my chest, or I feel my face get flushed. What would we do then? Okay, how about we wash our face with some cold water, or how about we do deep paced breathing, right? To kind of like slow things down. Incredibly effective, because again, remember, these children, they're not choosing to be difficult. They're not choosing to battle with you. And they want to just feel calm. They don't want to feel the way they feel when they're escalated.
Yeah, I specifically remember that tip because you mentioned very accurately that these kids internalize everything, even things that are not about them, and that finding it in the body is so effective for that. So I love that takeaway. So I basically wanted to move over towards what is strategies that parents usually take with strong-willed kids. I would say, I guess it's yelling, or really strong, like I guess corporal punishment. They're trying to outdo the child so that they are in charge, right? What would you recommend to these parents to either think about or how to transition away from that?
I would sort of jump back a little bit to what we discussed earlier, with just keeping in mind that we're all born this blank slate, right? And as adults sitting here today, we'll all probably chuckle a little bit at this one, but we can look at ourselves and we can probably find a trait or two that we say, this trait, it doesn't work the best for me. And then we ask ourselves, where did it come from, right? And we say, darn it, it came from my loving mother, my loving father, whoever it came from. Generally, it's a loving person who didn't mean to pass along a trait to you that wasn't going to work for you. And to just remember that your child is a blank slate, and they are so highly moldable. And between the ages, especially of 2 to 6, they're forming who they are, their self-concept, everything, their personality. By 6, 7 years old, it will be concrete. And so this is your time. This is your time to role model what you want to see your child become in the future, right? So that is the biggest piece. And I think consider your child. Just like I tell many couples in couples therapy, I say, talk to your spouse like you would talk to your child, because you talk to them much more lovingly and with understanding. I think, again, I entirely understand a strong-willed child can be trying, and it can feel like they're tap dancing on your last nerve. But disengage, do not jump into the battle with them, try to understand them, understand where they're coming from, understand that they may only see their perspective, and that again, they need your help. So to look at it as, because it's so easy to look at it as, oh, this, my child is driving me nuts, you know? And we've got to kind of take this reframe and say, my child is really suffering right now. Like, this doesn't feel good for them, you know? So how do I model and reflect to them how to handle this in the moment?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think parents are obviously the first step, the first reactors, right? And they decide how the experience is going to go, even more so than a child. And I think that's the reframe, right? So I wanted to transition over to the effects of strong-willed children not having good coping techniques, so that we can kind of get a well-rounded idea. And especially because what I assume is a lot of people in therapy for addiction and things like that are actually sensitive, strong-willed people that never got the coping education that they needed. So what are some signs of an adult that is strong-willed? And maybe some of the things that you see that you have to unpack.
Sure. We see a lot of difficulty in interpersonal relationships. And by that, we mean relationships with romantic partners, friends, family members, colleagues, bosses, teachers. We see it reflect in all life domains, right? So we see difficulty compromising or an inability to work to a compromise. We see people very sadly turning to unhealthy ways of coping because they did not learn as a child how to cope effectively with their very strong emotions. And when a person is a highly sensitive person or strong-willed person, and again, we'll say it again because we can't say enough, those things are more often than not go together. It's really crucial that they build that emotional vocabulary. They build that toolbox of skills to manage those emotions, because otherwise they will come up with other means to make life more manageable. And I've seen those be very unhealthy to people, you know, and even cost life, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, you know, we have a great topic coming up about the difference between unconditional love and unconditional tolerance, and how parenting can sometimes be the cause of the misunderstanding. And I think strong-willed kids are, speaking to what you just said, strong-willed kids find or have this confusion start early on, especially when parents do not hold to their boundaries. And so they start confusing a lack of tolerance, maybe later in life in relationships, for a lack of love, right? So they're expecting unconditional love, which means they can do whatever they want, and their parents let them. And then they get to adulthood, and that's not how life works.
Right. And the problem is, a lot of times your family, like, they feel like, well, we're stuck with you, but other people who readily get to choose are going to say, whoa, you know, and that leads to a very unfulfilling life for a person, you know, when nobody really wants to maintain a connection with you. That's unbearably hard, you know.
Yeah, that's actually hard on the child. It's if you want to protect your child from that. That is important to teach boundaries and why they matter. But even for, you know, the kind of the toxicity that you're helping bring into the future, it ends up being super, super important. Yeah, so I wanted to close off with some recommendations that you would have for parents, and maybe the next steps that they would have, if the first steps, or what you would recommend a parent start doing if they had a strong-willed child that they were having some issues with repetitively.
So, you know what? I think the best place to start is with an open, honest conversation and communication, right? Because a child that is strong-willed doesn't know that they're a strong-willed child, doesn't know that other people experience emotions at a lower intensity than them, right? They don't know anything until somebody says, hey, you know, I noticed that when things seem to happen that don't go your way, it gets you very upset. Do you think that, like, for example, say you have a sibling or even a twin, better example, right? We're talking about like a serendipitous example, but we'll use it. Say you have a twin. You said, do you think that your brother would be just as upset, or do you think that maybe for you, it matters a little bit more, hurts a little bit more. And a child may then be able to reflect and say, maybe it bothers me more. And maybe they aren't able to look at it that way. In case then it takes you saying, I notice when things like this happen to your brother, that you both have a very different reaction. And that's okay, but it upsets me to see you upset. So I think that we should work together on finding ways so that when you're starting to feel very upset and out of control, you can kind of pull it back in and be in control, right? Because
yeah, yeah, I love that.
just like that, so you can be in control, right? It's not so that this stops because we can't keep doing this with you anymore. It's all about the way you frame it, right? And that's going to determine the buy-in that you're going to get. And you want to have a conversation like this during a good time, not when you're in the middle of rope pulling. No, I mean, we're talking about, we just had a great day at Six Flags or whatever it may be. We're at home having dinner, everything's good, everyone's smiling. That's the time, right? That's the time to have a conversation like that. It's going to go as well as it can during a time like that.
Yeah. I love so many things that you said. I mean, bringing awareness to it is like the main thing, but also making sure that the child kind of is a leader and in control is like the strategy. And I think that's so important, especially if the parent's having issues with it right now. So how they can find a way to let the child lead in whatever the problem is, I agree that is definitely the best way to go about it. Yeah. So if there's anything else that you wanted to add, if not, I essentially want people to go over to Supportive Space. I mean, if you're in New Jersey, you need to follow them. You need to, they're an amazing resource. They're affordable, which is a difference in what's available out there. And not only that, I mean, from what I've seen, you guys have amazing therapists, and you are an amazing therapist and amazing educator. But I wanted you to have a couple of minutes to explain to everybody watching us what you do and to go and follow.
Yeah, absolutely. So please join, follow us. Our Instagram is at supportive.space.counseling. And you'll find all kinds of things on our Instagram page. We put skills for managing anxiety, how to use positive praise with your children. I think a recent post we did, not too recent, but fairly recent, was 3 different mindful breathing techniques for kids. But we're also putting all kinds of other things out there too. So just motivational things. You know, I think that sadly the world has become a cold place, and I'll get on my soapbox just very briefly and say, listen, I never met in my entire over a decade being a therapist, I've worked with probably thousands of people, and I've met a lot of unhappy people. They're suffering, right? And it's the unhappy, it's the hurt people in the world that they hurt other people, right? And so I think the biggest thing that I strive to do is put a little bit of happiness and hope into people's lives, so that ultimately we all have an easier time in this world, because too many of us are struggling with things that feel beyond our control. And if we can just get back a little bit of hope that like we can do this, we can get through all this stuff. Again, less hurt people means less people getting hurt secondarily. And maybe
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And having somebody that you feel is supporting you is, I mean, you know how many people out there feel alone in their situation. It makes a difference. Somebody quickly asked what if you take insurances, or if there are specific ones, if you could list them.
Sure. We do. We take Blue Cross Blue Shield, Horizon, United, Oxford, Aetna. We take Medicare. The only plan that we're really not in network with at this time, but we're in the process of paneling with, is state Medicaid for New Jersey.
Okay, awesome. And then if you also have very affordable, like if a person's paying out of pocket, you have affordable options.
So we have graduate student interns that are in their internship, second or third internship placements. And what they do with us is they provide free to low cost counseling services where consumers set their own rate. And even if people are not interested in going with one of our graduate students, then we still are willing to put them with one of our therapists and offer a very generous sliding fee scale, so that that's affordable to anybody who needs it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about you guys. So there is really no excuse. If you are not in New Jersey, can they reach out to you?
You certainly can reach out. And in fact, I am in the process of, it's wonderful that some laws have changed with telehealth. And so hopefully by 2024, we will be also working with people in Florida. So what do you know?
Okay, awesome. All right, so you guys head over to her page, follow her. There's no excuse for that, but also head over to her page, to her site and her services for really affordable support for yourself or your kids. All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and the topic was so important, so amazing. I loved your insight. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining us, and thank you. Have a great day.